right. Someday we will paint. I'm using my round pointed. Yes, I am recording. Thank you. I even tested it. I did. It's recording. It says stop recording and it says record, and we've been recording for 11 whole minutes. I have some really golden material of children telling me stories and fighting in the background. Yes, excellent. So rounded, what's that? All right, so this Bumblebee is, well, I tried, it's funny because Anita gave me a picture that she wanted to try. And the bee was like from the side bottom, so you could see all of the legs and the eyes and all this stuff. And I'm like, no. It's gonna take way too long. So I found this picture of the bee from the top down, which is a lot easier because we're essentially gonna paint like a jelly bean and then give it stripes. And then the wings will likely be the hardest part to try to mimic the transparency. But for now, we're gonna start in that with that big flower in the middle, and we're essentially gonna make a bean. It's gonna be a great little shape. So I'm using, go ahead. No. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, mine is definitely, let me see, if I look here, it's like, yeah, so yours is straight up and down, your flower? Mine, yeah, if I were to put, yeah, like, yeah, it's around like that, and my bee will be here. Right around there. So yeah, I'm using the pointed one just because it'll be more like drawing, and I don't have a brush big enough to just do one giant dab to make one shape, so we're gonna trace it out. For paint colors, I'm mixing some yellow with some white. I actually don't have my palette accessible, so let me do that first, just so I can lift it up and show you as I go. I have it all tucked in the little art cart top shelf right now, which is super convenient when I'm painting, but not great for unless I have the camera set up. So I have it set up like this. I took out all the colors because I have the wet background. Like I'm using the Stay Wet palette, so it's okay that I have all the colors out now. My red is traveling a little bit. So yeah, I took some yellow and some white, and again the white is just to make it more opaque, although in your case it seems your white is pretty stubborn. I'll let the red travel back this way now. I'm gonna take a dot of red to make this more into an orange color. I don't want the bee to be too yellow because we used a yellowish, we kind of used a yellowish green, so I'm making a bit of like, oh, look at that. It's definitely a little more orange. Oops, you can't see. There it is. Boop, boop. So it's kind of orangey. Then I'm going to use that orangey color to trace out my bee. And again, start small. Well, first we'll outline the kind of the boundaries for the bee first. So I'm choosing this flower. It's the one that I didn't fill with all the details. I want the top of the bee to cover the center. So I'm just doing a little mark here. It's depending on how you painted your flower. Oh, that's goodness, it's hard to see, eh? It's not a huge contrast on my screen. I'm gonna add a bit more red. It might just be so that you guys can see it though. How's that? Okay, that's a bit better. I'm gonna zoom in though. You don't have to super see my face for this part. We want to see the bee. Yeah. It'll always focus on whatever's moving. Sorry, I have to lock it in place. It's getting all fidgety. There we go. Get a nice view of Norman back there. He's just chilling on the couch. He's like, what's up? Yeah, he's a giant crochet monster I made when I was commuting to Mercury every day. Oh my goodness, on the bus like for an hour and a half.
That was silly.
That was a good time. I got so much crocheting done. All right, let me like sit back from it so it doesn't keep blurring. All right, so top the bee and the bottom, I just want his bum kind of hanging off, but not passing the petals. So those are the boundaries. The bee butt boundaries. So many bee words. I'm gonna round it out. So I'd say as far as width, I'm looking at my sample. I had it up on the screen and it's gone. Yum. It's okay. It's definitely more orange than yellow. Chipotle mayo could work too, as long as you're, you can try adding more yellow. That should fix it. If it's too chipotle, it's very light. It's then there might be too much white. If it's not bright enough and it's too light, then it might just be too much white. And in that case, you can just start a new swatch right next to it. Because unless you just mix like a ton of paint. That's right, you did mention that. Alright, so I'm going to circle around and make my little bean shape. I'm going to make the head end ever so slightly narrower than the bum. So I'd say it's almost an egg, but not pointy. Just like an oblong ellipse. Whoop, whoop. There we go. Why is that? Your yellow situation? It's gonna be like that for mine too. So, or rather it was like that. Sorry, in the sample it was also like that. And then what we're gonna do is we just have to mix some more of the dark green. So do save some of your yellow to make green. I hope you have enough. And then later on we're going to put it into some of these little nooks and crannies around the same area where the petals are. The more it overlaps, the more realistic it is actually, just because we have to accommodate for everything that it's covering. So, because if the wings were only covering the white, it would look like it was just pasted on there, right? So it's good. Yeah, little bean. So I'm filling it in. If you're super wary of running out of yellow, you can just do the stripes and not have to worry about where the dark parts are going to be. So the first stripe, I'd say halfway through, I put a stripe, and then okay, good. And then, so I encircled it, and then I have halfway a stripe, and I'd say it's about, we're dividing it, it's bigger for the head, and then the body's divided in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sorry. 3 yellow and 3 darks. Oh, yeah, you can see it right there. So the head is a bit bigger, so that is not really quite a stripe. It's just like a pom-pom. And then there are 1, 2, 3 yellow stripes. And it doesn't matter, you can make the yellow ones really thick because we're going to be covering it and alternating with the darker color. So if you feel like you made it too thick, don't worry about it. I mean, ideally you could just cover the entire thing, but I find it might be easier to keep track of them if we kind of start with a stripy pattern. So the head is 1 bit, which is a bit longer. Oh, it's probably focusing on my head again, eh? Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not watching the camera as much. So good. Sorry? Okay, yeah, that's fine too. just went ahead and did the whole. I think head, middle, middle, and butt. Okay, cool. And for the black, it's not real black. No, of course not. It's me we're talking about here. I think I'm going to, once we have the general shape though, before we go into the black, I'm gonna make the edges of the bean less smooth because bumblebees are fuzzy. So to do that, I'm just grabbing, I have the same color, but like instead of the smooth edge, I'm just taking my brush and kind of dabbing it around the edges. I probably can't see it very well, but I just don't want it to be so smooth that it looks like an actual jelly bean. So dabbing it at the edges just ever so slightly, mostly just around where the head is. We're not going to see it on the sides, but the head and then the bum. We want a fuzzy butt bumblebee. You want a fuzzy butt bumblebee. You don't want him to be like, I don't know, too sleek. They have to look clumsy. Bumblebees are, what is it, like aerodynamically impossible? I remember reading something about them saying how the laws of physics do not apply to bumblebees. Anyway, I'm just fuzzing him up a bit. You need a bit more white. My orange is a bit orangey. There we go. Now it's a fuzzy bean. Piggy bees? Oh, that's so cute. Actually, Anita was showing me an artist who, or maybe it was Maria. Anyway, someone was showing me an artist who primarily illustrates different animals as bumblebees. Like a rabbit head on a bumblebee body, or anyway, it was really funny. It was just very unusual. But I think it's the fuzziness. Like they chose things that were fuzzy and then turned them into bumblebees because it's cute. Okay. Alright, so I mixed a little bit of white. I think I made a bit too much white. Anyway, the fuzzy looks fuzzy. I mostly focused the fuzziness on the head and on the butt. Okay, so for the dark color, essentially, I almost reached for my drink to dip my brush in. Yes, that's why I use like this nice, like the tub, right? Like it's really hard to, I don't use cups anymore. Too deceiving. I use the tub. All right, so to make the dark color, it's probably going to be equal parts red and blue. Let me just test it out. Blue is normally really strong, but we actually do want the strength of the blue in this situation to make it almost black. It's so funny. It might end up looking a bit purple because it is red and blue together, unless you're mixing dioxazine purple with red. Is that what you're...
No, I was just wondering if that would be the same thing.
You can use dioxazine purple mixed with a little bit of red, and it might give you the same effect. If you just use the pure purple, though, I'm worried that when you would paint over the white, it would look like that really bright purple that you have. Yeah. So what I have here is a pretty equal mix of cyan, primary cyan, and primary magenta. Or actually, I don't even know if that's primary magenta. I think it is. It's my 80,000-year-old paint bucket.
Okay.
It just says bright red. Go figure. Red. Get the reddest red. Cad red's good. Yeah, cads are nice. Okay, so it looks almost like black, but it's a bit richer and it'll match the darks in our painting already. So now after you have your dark, we do fuzzy marks. Oh, that's right. Good. Oh, that is so dark. All right, so for the fuzzies, for the dark fuzzies, because I'm barely touching my canvas with the brush. This is again the same brush. I washed it. Go figure, I actually washed it this time. I didn't want light orange on my brush. I am using the pointed round, and I am very gently stroking the dark color just because I want to have some of that texture from the bristles. And I want to
Like the third of the way down.
oh, that's right, because you did the whole bean. So the first one is, it starts in the middle third, and then you're going to split that, I would say, in half. Yeah, almost. So like if I took the lower half of the body here, I would be doing it's around there, and then the last one is a little bit closer to halving it again. I hope that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Half and half and half. Nope. All right. Yeah, so the first one's a third. First one's a third, and then I feel like I have a really hard time describing this. I am being distracted. What is it, sweetie?
You can't do it.
You can't do what?
Look in the project.
Okay, well, I can't help you right now. I'm recording. This is a class for my website. Okay, I will help you when I'm done.
Because Dad just said, do it.
Okay. He's calling you, and I have a feeling those weren't his exact words. Anyway, I feel like I need to figure out a better way to explain this just for the sake of the later game. All right, there's my bean. Okay, there's my bean. If I were to divide it in thirds, that's like a Band-Aid. And then I curved it a little bit because, I mean, I should have. I didn't, but I should have. I curved it a little bit because he is a rounded bean. And then the bottom third. And then in half again. And then I guess I made this one a little bigger. It's really approximate. Really what I was aiming for is to space them out evenly so that it looks like the head is bigger and then the ones near the bum are closer together. I hope that's sufficient. Bumblebee butt. But I'm raising the I'm going along the edge near the corners. I'm going closer to the previous one along the corners because I wanted to simulate a little bit of roundness. So it's kind of like an arc going this way for the stripes. And it's totally not the same as my sample, but that's okay. We're adjusting as we go. I feel like this angle makes more sense than the angle I had in my sample piece. So to make it look more rounded, if you've already just done a straight line, you add a little bit on the corners on the top and then a tiny little bit to the bottom. And again, because I'm using kind of a dry brush technique now because my paint is running out, but it also means that it gives it more of a fuzzy texture when I do that. Let's see if I can just do. It's like super fuzzy because I'm not putting new paint on my brush. I'm just pulling down the previous paint, and that causes the bristles to actually be drier and deposit less paint onto the canvas, and then it becomes more textured. All right, so our bee is like almost done. The wings are the hard part. So next I would like to we'll do the antenna, and then I don't think I'm gonna bother with the legs because I didn't really do them here. I had like one start over. Oh, sorry, you can't see. I had one over here and I wasn't quite sure if I liked it. We'll try leaving it out. We'll say that he's got all of his little feet in the middle, and that the wings will, would probably have covered it. So for simplicity's sake, we'll leave out the legs, but we will do the antenna next. All right, so I actually have to mix a little bit more of my dark purple, same color. If you find that you went over too much with the dark color, you can always go back and forth with a different brush. I would recommend using a different one of a similar size. Like if I wanted to grab, go back with my light orange and kind of correct some of it. But the thing is, the dark one is so dark that whatever you do with this, it'll just kind of be like a clear layer on top. It won't be anything super opaque. But it could help ease the transition a bit if you feel like your dark stripe was a bit too intense. Like this could help soften it, but again, yellow is so transparent and you're gonna have to mix a little bit of white in there if you really want it to cover properly. But it is possible. You can go back and forth. I would just advise using a different brush because both of these colors are really intense and the yellow does not cover the dark color very well, as you experienced with the white on top of the red. The layering really does make a difference in which order that you do it. Some colors more than others, I suppose. There. I don't know if I really needed to do that, but it was more for the sake of the example. All right, so for the antenna, same brush. Actually, if you find your round pointed is too fat and you want more control, you can switch to a smaller, more detailed brush. I'll stick with this one just because my canvas is pretty big. So this brush is actually a pretty decent size, but if you have a tiny one, you might want to use the tiny one for the antenna. And again, totally optional. So I'm just going to do the method where we're going to connect the dots. It'll help make it a lot easier. So if we divided our little bean in two, I'm going to grab a different brush to do this with. Okay. So we divide our little bean in two. And if we take kind of the halfway point between the top, I guess the apex of this curve, and the first stripe, it'll of course depend where your first stripe falls. Mine, I curved it up a little bit, so you might have to nudge your measurement a bit higher, but it's going to be about halfway. And I have a little dot there just as a guide. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So there's the apex, and then there's the top of the left stripe, and about halfway. That's where the beginning of that. Right now they look like little eyes. It's pretty funny. But that's going to be the base of the antenna. Now where they end, I kind of had, in the sample you can see, it's almost as if they follow the curve of that flower. I don't know if that was intentional, but I mean, there it is. So we can use that as a guide. So I'm not going to brush it right away, but I'm going to kind of guess. Let's be a little more technical than guessing. If I have my petal here, it's about 2/3 of the way up. So if this is like the bottom and that, oh sorry, that's the bottom there and that's the top, I divide it into thirds and it's right around there. And that would be the tip of the right antenna, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So that's about the length of that. And it's funny because this is the type of measuring that they don't always tell you about, but people are doing it all the time. If you watch like an artist painting outside, like you probably can't really see, but like they kind of close one eye and they're doing kind of this motion, and they're actually measuring using their brush. They say, okay, this person their head goes from the top of my brush, they'll extend their arm out all the way, and they'll measure something and say, okay, it's this high, and then they'll see how many of those high the person is, and that's how people block out paintings, and that's how they measure it before they even start. So it's really common to use shortcuts like that, and some people are like, oh, you're cheating. I'm like, no, we're using what we have. It's pretty essential. You need to use what you have. For the antenna, I have a little bit of a curve in there. Again, I kind of follow, I don't completely follow this arc of the petal. I just will say that would be the curve if I were to join this like that. It's slightly like the curve of the flower, but not too much. It's like a milder, more straightened out. My little sample guide, they're almost bent, the little antenna. And I'd say if it were bent, it was like kind of at the halfway point there. Again, not super terribly important, but there we go. There's a little antennae. I think it's kind of cute when they have a little bit of a bulge at the end. It's more cartoony that way. I don't know what the real ones are like so close up, but I feel like the little bulge at the end makes it look more expressive somehow, like little eyebrows. And I'm extending it a little bit into the head just to simulate the fuzz kind of coming around it, like that. There, that part's done. There's a lot of measuring. Okay. All right, for the wings, we're gonna be doing the frame first and then going around on the inside. So the frame of the wing starts at the top stripe, just around, I'd say a bit above that. So you have your top stripe here, and then the wing here, I'm gonna add a little, maybe halfway, a little closer to the stripe, but I'd say maybe a third away from the top stripe and the right antenna. I'm gonna do a dot, and that will be the base of one wing, and around the same spot in the other one, like that. And now it just looks like derpy-eyed Bumblebee. Oh my goodness, it's great. Okay. Oh, derpy bean bee. It could. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the shape of the wing is probably going to be around, it goes straight and then it curves at the end. So I'm going to say that mine will end at around here. So depending on where your flower was, this one is landing right on the inside of that petal. Again, your flowers are probably totally different. I'd say it's about the same length as the bee. So if you were to judge the length of the wing, it's about, wow, okay, yeah, it is. It totally is. It's the same length as my bumblebee's body, but about as if there were a triangle like that. The bottom of the, we have the bottom of one wing and the bottom of the other falls right around there. Ooh, there, okay. A lot of measuring. That's the hard part. The rest is, once you have your guidelines, the rest is kind of falls into place, which is nice. Okay. So for the actual line, it's kind of, we're gonna head straight there and then curve at the end. So it's straight, oh sorry, it comes out at a little curve, I lied, sorry. And then it goes straight and then it curves. So I'd say as far as the shape goes, it's kind of like, I don't know, like a little road and then it dips off at the end. I don't have an analogy for this shape. We're joining like a giant rounded triangle almost. Repeat a similar thing on the other side. It goes, stretches down and then curves. So if you want to do the curve first, and this one, maybe I'll have it extend a bit lower just to look, so it doesn't, I don't want it to copy the petal. Because if it goes exactly over the petal, it'll look weird. It'll do that weird tangent thing again. A tangent, you know, is just when you have too many objects all magically lining up in a row and it leads your eye and it looks really weird. So I'm gonna try to avoid this flower petal curve and just kind of go straight and then curve at the end, like that. It's like a hook. And we're not gonna go all the way and join, like, I don't wanna trace the wing because we want to leave the actual edges of the wing to be transparent. So this, we're just working on the frame for now. All right, so there's the frame. Just gonna give it one more layer because it's a bit transparent on mine. It's a bit more on the blue side than purple. That's okay. All right. Now for the next step, what we're gonna do is we're gonna further divide the wing into, I'd say, 3 sections on each side. And it's gonna have a similar pattern. So we're gonna start a little bit below for each side. Again, give it little derpy eyes underneath the wing frame. So it gets to stare at you for a little bit. And we're going to mimic that first curve, but it's going to end sooner. So this way it is gonna follow the first line. Oh, I might have to switch to a smaller brush. This is getting kind of fat. And then before it gets to the bottom, I'm going to break it off to have it join. And that's where you start getting that really neat pattern, like almost like cell walls, like plant cell walls. I find the patterns are very similar. If you look at leaves under a microscope, they have this like, it's geometric, but it's also very organic. It's like, I don't know, this shape where they close off in random places, but it's really quite neat how they do that. I don't know where the shapes appear in other places in nature, but I find it's really similar in these insect wings. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Actually, on the other side, we're gonna switch it up. We don't want them to be too symmetrical. I'm just gonna do just a line here. Again, it'll stop short of the hook. And then I'm going to branch this, I'm gonna go back and branch this one off. Like that. It's just gonna hang out there, like a little tree branch inside of his wing. Alrighty, and then I'm gonna have a third line, and it'll come out of the stripe so we can't really see the base of it. Am I going too fast? Are we okay? All right, cool. Okay. All right, so this time we're going to go down and kind of meet this little twiggy thing that I made earlier. So I'm bringing it down and then breaking it off at around the same point. It'll make like a Y shape. Like that. There we go. I need more darkness. Color. Okay. And similar on the other side. For this side, I had it a bit differently. I had this one branch off in 2 places. So for this one, I have it branch off about 1/3 from the start. It goes down about not quite the same length as the original branch. I'd say about half. And then again, a little bit further down. Whoop. They just kind of end up looking a little bit like tree branches. And really any pattern can be okay. We're going to be completing the wing kind of like in this motion, not with this color, but like if you can imagine any like I have one more on this side, I think in the original, the left wing has a lot more. You can add a lot of different veins to it depending on, especially once we have the shape down, you can add as many little sections as you like. Whatever you think looks nice on the bee. But those are gonna be the main ones for now. And I'm going to wash this brush because the next few steps will be using white. Love how easy it is to clean acrylic off of brushes. Oil is such a pain. Rather in oils, I almost just stick with the same I just won't wash the brush. I'll just stick with the same sized brush, but a different brush. And I actually have a few of them now where I have like 2 or 3 of the same sized brush. Because in oils, it's like, oh, I just want the same size, but I don't want to wash it because it takes so long. It's a nice thing about acrylics. You just got to rinse it off. All right, so now we're going to take pure white to start with a little bit of water to make it semi-transparent. So I'm dipping my brush in the water. I just washed it. And then I'm going to grab some white. And I think I still have it around here. There we go. Yeah, so I don't want it so wet that it's dripping. Actually, right now it's dripping, so I'm just going to dab it dry a little bit. Yeah, I want it a little wet just so that it's wet enough to be transparent. You can't even see it on my palette, but I swear it's there. But not so wet that it's dripping. So I'm going to go in and we're going to trace the other side of the wing. So we did this side, and now we're going to outline where it will be on the inside of it. So essentially we're looking for a large teardrop shape. So if you can picture that, that might help. Where the top of the teardrop is around here. I added, yeah, so, and then I'm going to continue it from underneath the last stripe that we did, so it's probably around here. And then I'm going to fan it out. Again, try to picture that teardrop shape. Actually, if it helps to go from the bottom first, that might be helpful. Go from the bottom. And it might camouflage with your flower petal. That's okay. We're going to add some shading in a bit. And then close that raindrop shape loop. So I can't see, I can barely see it at all down here, but once it comes up here, I have a little curve. I don't want it to be super perfectly straight, but oh, somehow I picked up yellow. I don't know how that happened. I guess it was too close on my palette. So we're closing it off, giving it that teardrop shape. So it's like this, and that would be the top. Now using the semi-transparent white, I'm going to fill it in starting from the top of the frame. Actually, it's starting to mix a little bit with the colors underneath, and that's actually okay because it's supposed to be semi-transparent. And if it picks up some of your yellow orange, just give it, just don't push too hard. Let it blend a little bit, that's okay. But keep your hand light and dab it instead of dragging the whole thing down. So in this case, I'm really lightly brushing it in little repetitive motions, and I'm filling in this little area here. So I'm covering the bee's body where the wing is, but you can still see the body underneath because I'm using a diluted white. Now, if you're just getting a giant mess, then let it dry before you keep attacking it. Don't try to don't muscle through it, just let it dry. And go after it later with just the translucent white after your paint dries a little more. Mine seems to dry really quickly, so it doesn't really mind that I put a wet white on top of it. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. On this side, let's see, yeah, it starts underneath there. I'm gonna dip it down. And then, again, I'm giving it, there are a few curves here. There's one here that kind of aims towards the first branch, and then the second curve is gonna be a bit fuller. And that will kind of, as if it's leaning, as if it's joining with this branch here. So there's one curve that goes here, it kind of joins with this one, and then this one kind of joins with that one, and then one big one, a sweeping one that goes all the way to the end there. So these shapes are probably the hardest in the whole piece. The rest is just kind of filling it in. Now with the white, I'm going in between the little branchy things to thin it out, because when I first did it, my brush was quite heavy with paint, so I'm just kind of dabbing it closer to the edges of that original frame. And don't forget to keep your white a little bit translucent, dip it in water, roll it around on the palette, and then bring it back and fill in the gaps, like so. Now I'm gonna push it all the way to the edge kind of my frame, because like I said, my frame was quite thick. I'm using the same brush kind of for the whole painting, so feel free to cover up your previous lines a little bit. What's nice about using the white on top of the dark is that we want that semi-transparency. It's what we're going for, so the white won't completely cover it, but that's the whole point. We don't want it to be. And if your white is totally covering everything and you find like, well, I'm not getting that semi-transparent effect, you're probably using it too thickly. So really be quite sparing with your paint. Don't apply it too generously in this case. I know I often say like, oh, don't be scared, use your paint, you know, but in this case we're being a little more delicate, using less paint and even just the touch of water. So I'm filling in the corners here, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Really gently filling in, kind of like, it's totally like a paint by number thing, right? So all of the little shapes that we're making, they get filled up. And after that, we get to mix some colors and add the shading. The fun part. I mean, this whole thing is fun. The whole painting is the fun part. Come on, guys. Totally. Bees. There we go. Oh, he's so cute. All right. Next, we're going to make some green. It's exciting. Thanks for the fart noises, family. Appreciate it. What are you supposed to be doing right now? No answer. He's just here to antagonize me. Okay. Right? I'm trying to think, like, what do I normally do? I think that's right, because normally I teach this class on Saturdays, and I dump them at my mom's house. I'm like, why is this such a thing today? I don't remember this always being such a big event with the kids around. Yeah, well, yeah, that too, but also, yeah, Saturdays, like, yeah. Anyway, Friday, they still have homework and chores. That's the big difference. All right, so we're going to, let's see, I'm going to wash this brush. So much washing the brushes today. What's going on here? I'm going to mix some green. So now I want to have kind of a readily available set of colors that match the surroundings of the bee, because with the wing, what we're getting is it's going to be picking up colors from its surroundings because it's a white and it's semi-transparent. So I'm going to mix that same brownie green color that we had to shade the petals. And if you guys remember, that was kind of like, okay, you start with your basic green. And this is where like color mixing gets fun. And it's one of those things where it becomes second nature, but it is still really hard to do, and it doesn't mean, it's one of those things where you're gonna want to have more than one color at your disposal, because you're gonna want to see and test different colors in different spots. You don't want to just use one color all the time and say, okay, I have green, I'm just gonna use the same green everywhere. No, we're gonna have a few stages of it. So I have this main green, which is just straight up yellow and blue. I'm going to grab some of it, stick it next to that color, and grab just a dot, like just a dot of red. And then mix that. Oh, that was a lot of red. But yeah, okay, so this makes the army green color. You're like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Now let's see what happens when I take that army green color and I introduce some white. So now I have like a variety of different shades that are all in the same family. We started off with the bright green, and this is pretty intense green. I don't know if we actually have, maybe the background has some of those greens, so it is good to have. But I think we're gonna stick more to the ones that have a bit more colors in them, more neutral. The more of the opposite color you add, the more earthy, earth tone and muddy they get, which is sometimes something you're looking for, and other times it can be too much. Like you can lose all the vibrancy in your painting if you mix all the colors together too much. That's when you get, mud puddles. All right, so let's see, where should we attack it first? Let's go with the bottom left one over here. So if the wing is overlapping the edges of the flower, I'm going to grab my greeny color and maybe some of the army green color. And it's gonna make something in between the two. So we'll try that. And now if you can picture what happens with these wings. Hi, Milo. Did you want to sit? You gotta make up your mind, baby, though. You can't just sit there and cry at me for the next hour. All right. Do what you want to do. All right, so I'm going to, so basically what we're doing is like, we're making a different, we're kind of filling in cells. The wings, how they work is like, if there's a frame and then they're all separated in these different like little cells. And what we're doing is we're coloring some of those in, but not all of them. We're gonna color the ones in that are hovering around the edge of this flower here. So I'm kind of following the curve of the wing here, and then I'll do that once and maybe twice, but again, leaving a bit of that white border in between. I'm gonna grab my green again. I'm gonna mix it. I'll just leave this right here. I don't know if that helps. There it is. Army greenish color. And very similarly to how we did leaving the edges of the flower white, what we're doing is we're using negative space to define a shape. And basically it's just like everywhere where we're not painting, that's actually what's defining the shape, not where we are painting. We're filling in colors between those lines so that we don't have to go back and like put white on top. So here I have some of the darker green along the edge. And I'm gonna do one more a bit higher here, and it's almost as if I'm filling it in like in reverse, leaving the white. I don't want to go too much higher than this because there are no flowers underneath this part of the wing. It's hard to see a little bit. Oh, hi, Sally. It's all good. Yes. Well, you can... It's all good. You're totally welcome to sit in and watch. Absorb. Right? Yeah, I know. I totally know the feeling. And yeah. Yeah, it was totally a different approach for sure. Now what we're doing is we're just kind of using the darker colors that were behind the petals as shading, and we're introducing them into the bumblebee's wing. So I'm going to do it also around the bottom of the petal. Now this is where we'll try to define the edge of this petal, this wing, where it was kind of white on white. And for that, I'm going to do a line here that kind of extends from these branching lines that we had before. Again, leaving that bit of a white border. And then I'm going to repeat that down here. And it's almost as if they're like, if the bumblebee's frame of these wings were tree branches, these are almost like long leaves that are sprouting out of it, if you could think of it like that. And just to the big reminder is just to keep those white borders between them, and that's really what gives the effect of those really translucent wings that are semi-transparent like that, and they're just kind of reflecting color off of whatever's around them. So I'm still kind of messing around with the color between the green and the army green. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit and then attempt the edge of the wing over here. And for that, I'm working kind of at the edge of what that raindrop shape would have been and going towards the inside. Now I'm getting closer to the bee's butt, so I'm gonna grab more of this orangey color and introduce that. Again, I'm not washing my brush in between these. I'm kind of making this really fun shape on my palette. Depending on where the brush travels, that's the color I'm using. And now I'm gonna introduce some of this orange to the wing here. It's subtle, but as long as you keep those white borders in between, and if you mess up the white borders, go back with a different brush and just outline your white again. Alternatively, if you want to color the whole wing one dark color and then go back and trace the white on top, that would be another method. Now I'm gonna put in a little bit in the middle here, filling it in, but not all the way to the edge. And again, over here. Anita didn't come to the first one. She wasn't here. It was just the four of us. Yeah. 5, I guess. 1, 2, Rob, Amelia, 3, 4, and then me. Yeah. 5 total. But Amelia and Rob are in, one camera, so. Now we're small this session. I really didn't do very well at marketing this one. It was definitely one of those things where I waited last minute, and I'm trying to get better about that. I need to paint them earlier. That's the biggest thing, is I need to actually get the samples ready. Speaking of which, if you guys have any ideas for next month, just let me know. Something easy. Yeah, that one was fun. Oh, we can do something with like fireflies. That's kind of like glowy. That's true. I did the firefly piece at the Art House Cafe like 5 years ago, actually. I can do that one again. Oh, the Christmas one. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. I'll That's right. We need something different that will attract some new buyers for you. Totally. Oh yeah. I have a lot of situations where I really don't even want to start yet, and they're like, oh, I can't pay you yet. I'm like, oh, it's okay. I don't want to start yet either. Just keep me on your radar and we'll get in touch later. That happens a lot. Life happens, right? Yeah. It's true. Sometimes if you have too long to think about it, you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to paint that anymore, or what if I screwed up, or I was good at painting it last week, what if I can't do it again? These are real fears. Oh, it'll be fine. It's tricky. It's because it takes time for me to warm up. So my first ones are very heavy-handed and messy, and then my second ones are a little tighter, and my third and fourth ones are different, but by then I've warmed up quite a bit and I have a bit more control. So it depends. That's from years of drawing. So I feel like your first attempt shouldn't be your only attempt, right? So give it a few goes and then see Yeah. Okay. I'm moving on to using, oh, I think I saw that one and thought it was your first one because I don't remember seeing both of them in the same thread. Oh, okay. Huh. I'll have to take another look. I'm grabbing. Interesting. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, that's awesome. So I guess you're gonna, yeah, if that's how you draw too, then go for it. I need to do everything a million times before it's remotely good. That's why I always paint these like a few times. Like this one I painted like a couple times before. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I get it. And I drew it and I also painted it on my iPad first just to make sure. I'm like, okay, we got this. I'm gonna go for the green now because green is kind of where this, I'm shifting over to the other wing now just to balance them out. I might go back and do some more detail on this guy. I kind of feel like the left wing, the lines are still too thick for my liking, but I want to balance it out on the other side before I make one like super perfect and then the other one is like not done at all. So I like to shift back and forth, especially when there are two things that are similar. It was the same with the flowers. Like we did all of the basic shape first, and then we did all of the shading first, or then we did all the middles next. So generally in a painting, you don't want to stick to one area and make it super, flippin' awesome. And then it's like, oh, I have 10 other flowers to do. And there's no way you're gonna be in the same mental state as you were for all of the flowers, right? So like, anyway, for all of that explanation, I'm shifting over to the right wing now. So again, for this one, I'm visualizing as if these lines keep going. And if these lines were to have kept going and they would have been white, I'm going around that imaginary area. And I have green right now, and I'm making kind of a triangle shape. And it will be like a wedge in there. It should be, because it's as if it's green shining through the wing, right? So we don't want it to be the same shade. I'm even gonna mess around with it a little bit, add a bit of yellow in there. And I'm gonna do the next one a little bit. I'm grabbing, you can see the colors, yeah. So now my palette is looking a lot more, well, it's looking a lot more painterly over here. I got all sorts of different colors mixed up together. Again, it's not a super precise science how I do this. It's definitely a lot of eyeballing. You could probably find someone who, actually measures the colors and how much to use of everything. But I'm like, it's around there. Use some green, just throw this on, see how it looks. If I don't like it, I can paint over it. So for here, I'm sticking to green because this wing is on top of just the bright green background that we have going on. And I'm kind of filling them in triangles, almost the same as the teardrop shape, as if it's kind of like a fractal where the wing is one giant triangle-y teardrop, and then I'm inserting that shape in other places and repeating it. That's one way to put it anyway. I used to be really into drawing fairies, like fairy wings, and really they're just insect wings, but I would put them on these fairy characters with elf ears. So I had a lot of practice kind of learning the shapes of insect wings. So they are a lot like the veins in a leaf, like I was saying before. Oh, that probably shouldn't have been bright green. This is on top of a petal, so I want to dull it down a bit. I'm going to grab some white and maybe a touch of red, because I don't want it to be like intensely green. Red will dull it down. Yeah, so if you have green here and I want it more earthy, I grab a touch of red, I grab its opposite color, and what it'll do is it neutralizes the green. It neutralizes it, so it makes it more gray. It brings it closer and closer to gray. But what it also does is it makes it less intensely shine in your face green, so I don't want that. And our flower petals are not bright green, so I'm taking, sorry, that color up there was just a demo. What I really wanted down here was this flower petal color, which is white mixed with the green we had and a touch of red just to dim it down a bit. And it makes almost a cream color. And the bee's wings are just gonna kind of be a mosaic of a bunch of different colors, but as long as they're all in the same family, as long as we're not introducing any wild, crazy colors that are so outside of this, we're all staying close to this little family of colors. So anything you put on here, they're all related, and they don't stick out from each other. So I'm just going along the wings. I'm filling in here and there. This color is definitely a little closer to the orangey yellow of the bee's body. Again, keeping those white borders in mind. I might even grab my other brush to lighten. I'm grabbing some white. I'm going to very delicately, gently trace along the veins because mine were way too big. That's okay. I kind of like how when I trace along them, it leaves a trail of the dark paint underneath, but just enough to give a suggestion that it used to be there. And to achieve that, if your white is really opaque, then you just add a dab of water. And if it's like super translucent, then you'll need to do more than one layer to get it covered. But it just depends on the coverage on the opacity of your paint. Some paint actually has an opaqueness rating, and this is, yeah, Amsterdam does it. For example, this is a tube of Amsterdam paint right here. So this is primary magenta. It'll have a square here and then these little pluses. I honestly, everyone has a different system, so I actually don't know what the system is. This one also has 3 stars. Typically what I'm used to seeing is that a solid square means that it's opaque and a transparent square means that it's semi-transparent. But for the life of me, this one is half. It's got like a little half square. Oops, sorry. Oh, there we go. A little half square. Yeah. Anyway, it's struggling to focus. So depending on the color, and the green is half because it's half yellow. And yellow is like the king of transparent colors. It's like barely there. Anyway, getting off topic. Wingy wings. And now it's all drying darker than when I put it down because it's acrylic and it drives me crazy. I know, right? It's pretty nuts how dark it dries. Yep, it makes the color matching very difficult. You know, that's why a lot of people try to do a painting like kind of in just one sitting, you know, because you don't have to worry. Everything will dry at the same rate. I've noticed some oils dry a bit darker, but because they take so long, like you said, you just do it in one sitting and then like it doesn't matter. With acrylics, it's tricky though. It is so hard to sit back down on an acrylic painting. That's why the giant one that I'm working on, the mountainscape, I feel like I spend the first hour painting that every time. I feel like I spend the first hour trying to just test my colors over and over again to see what palette I should use, because, oh, it's tricky. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, for the original reason that I chose to use acrylics for that is because I thought I would be finished it a bit faster and the return to the client would be quicker. And I thought that if I started it in oils, also because it's a layered painting, it has so many different stages in it. Hang on. That I was worried that you can see it there in the background. I was worried that because I needed to add so many levels, if I did the sky first and then did the castle on top, it would have taken 3 or 4 weeks for the sky to dry before I could even add the mountains, and then before I could add the trees, and before I could add the castle. I didn't want to have to wait. It, you know, yeah, it takes anywhere from, depending on the color, because oil colors change the length of dry time based on the metals that are used in the pigment. So this little guy here, I started 4 days ago. Anyway, it's a little guy in a car, little duty head. One of the toy paintings, yeah. So that one, I started based on the paint from the Bert painting that still hadn't dried. So Bert, I painted on my vacation week. That was 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah, so he just finished drying, and I painted him in one sitting. So about 2 to 3 weeks of dry time for oils. Yeah, so if I had waited for this commission to do it in oils, it would have been a nightmare because it would have taken me so long, because I'm not used to doing landscapes. That's the thing. I'm used to working in layers like that, and you can't do that with oils. I'll get there eventually, but I'm just not that good yet. I have some practice to do. I have not. I think I might even have some, but yeah, I think because someone gave me a whole pile of random oil. I get, like someone gave me, no, yeah, it wasn't you for this one, but yes, Sally, you gave me a whole bunch of oil paints. Well, exactly, right? I get that a lot. They're like, oh, hey, she does oil painting. She can use this stuff. I got a bunch. It was from, oh my goodness, what was her name? She used to come to Ottawa, and she moved out to BC, and she works, she started a daycare or something. Anyway, so she gave all her paint stuff to me, and a whole bunch of it were solvents and different chemicals from oil painting. And I had no idea what any of them were until I had to teach it. I'm like, oh crap, I should probably learn what these are. So I went down like this rabbit hole of like, Gamblin has a wonderful, and all of them were Gamblin. Gamblin has a lot of resources online for figuring that stuff out. They have a whole chart for what all of their different fluids are for. And some of them speed dry time, some of them are just mediums to change the gloss, like the overall look of a painting after it dries. Some of them extend dry time, so it's like, but I honestly, for the life of me, can't remember what does what. So I'm gonna have to look it up again. Because to have them sped up to dry would be really nice for some paintings, because it's like some of them I just finish them in 2 sittings or whatever, and that's it. I don't want it to be wet forever. Like my giant space paintings, I didn't mind that it took weeks, months to dry, because that's how long I was working on them for. But they were also very flat. Like my space paintings are very 2-dimensional. They're not worked in so many layers. I'm talking and painting again. I'm grabbing some of the dark color from the stripes, and I'm mixing it in with that army green, and that's to make some of the wing areas around the stripes. Sorry, I just figured I'd vocalize that before I go too far. So really, I'm trying to mix different colors that are close to whatever was underneath the wing, and mix it with white, and so that it's like a layer that's just hovering over. Anytime it just appears right over a petal, what I'm trying to do so that you can actually see where the wing ends is I'll use a pale yellow or a pale green, because that's the overall color of our painting, right? Like the overall shading of all of the things is kind of greenish. So if I want to define the edge of the wing, even if it's on top of another flower petal, I'm taking white and adding it to a yellow green, And I'm kind of defining the bottom of the wing that way. And just little stripes. It's kind of a stripe, it's kind of a cell, it's kind of a teardrop shape. It's really, because it's an organic shape, it's kind of like when you're drawing trees or clouds. There's no wrong way to do it. You can really do any shape and it'll be fine. To make it convincing though, you follow whatever rules that nature gives you, which is normally things start off big and taper off tiny. So the spaces might be bigger here, but they're smaller near the edges, because that's just like if you were to look at sorry, my palette's a mess right now. So just the same kind of theory as if this is a vein of a leaf, like that. So it starts off really wide and then it branches off infinitely, right? So as long as you keep that concept of starting big and ending up tiny, and that's really just like the only rule. If you're doing, it's the same thing for clouds. And once you get that pattern, once you understand it, and I think I understood it a really long time ago. I drew trees endlessly when I was my daughter's age. I would just draw trees over and over and over again, and leaves, and like I don't know why I was obsessed with trees. When I wasn't drawing anime characters, I was drawing these giant epic trees. Giant effing trees, man. Giant epic trees. I just loved that pattern, that fractal sequence, and it would come out in a lot of my stuff. And this is a bit dark. See, it's drawing so dark. I'm gonna lighten it up. Basically, I just really liked that sequence is reliable. You can do clouds that way. Clouds are the same. They start with giant puffs, and near the edges they get smaller, you know. Trees do that, leaves do that, and even little insect wings do that. So this is pretty much the last step. I mean, filling in your wings is the last thing that we're doing. And I'm just trying to think anything else. I would go back and I think I'm gonna see, now that this wing is all nice looking, I'm gonna go back to this one again. Yeah. I'm like, oh, now the first one looks like crap. I gotta go back and fix it. And it's kind of this game of, this is why people say like a painting is never finished. Cause you, yeah, I'm getting close to it now. It's the patience. I'm like, you felt done. You did, yeah. Yeah, and I think there is definitely a point where a painting can become overworked, and that's what I've actually run into a lot, because I think I'll get to a point and I'm just like, it's not done, but I'll show someone else, and if they say, oh, that looks great, is it for sale? Or, you know, oh, that looks great, are you going to post it? And I'm like, that tells me they think it's done, which means it's probably done, you know? And so like I used to feel like I needed to do super detail every single corner all over the canvas. And now I kind of, showing people my work is a huge part of how I decide if it's finished or not. If people get the impression that it's finished and I've already communicated the idea that I intended to, then it's done. And that's mostly like, that's after years of painting though. I wouldn't say that to someone who just started painting. You know, if you don't feel like it's done yet, then if you really feel strongly you haven't finished communicating what it is and the other person isn't quite sure what you're trying to say with the work, then keep at it, you know, like you might still have something left to say. And there's nothing wrong with putting it away for a bit and coming back to it later, although I know that might be hard sometimes because you just really want to finish it and just be done with it. But I have a few like the woman who's curled up in a ball, the one that I just sold, that one went through so many transformations. It started off as a nebula, and then it was like a giant cloud shaped like a pelvis, because I wanted to make a galaxy in the bowl of the pelvic bowl to use as a symbol for a nursery or a place of conception. Not conception, but like, you know, like of birth, you know? So I wanted to use that imagery, and then I didn't like it, and it hung up on my wall for a good 6 to 8 months. And then I decided, you know what, I feel like when I go to my retreat, I'm only going to bring one painting, and it's going to be that one, and I'm going to finish it. And I only brought that one piece, and I forced myself to come to terms with figuring out what was going to go there. And I ended up deciding to put a figure in there, and it was totally different. Totally different. And if I didn't stick with it, rather, if I didn't rest it, I would not have discovered that. So sometimes, and other, what's that? I use a sketchbook, yeah. So it's writing them down in a mix of, I think I have the actual book somewhere nearby. I do. I know, I'm terrible for that. Oh, lucky I actually have that specific piece in here I can show you. Of course I did. That's a sticker though. That's a paint marker doodle, and these are stickers. And washi tape, because why not? So the painting originally started, I was researching this one cluster, the Westerland 2, and then I found images that someone else had done 3D renderings of. It's an artist I've shared on Instagram. You probably have seen it. It's like those giant nebulas twisting in the sky, and like I posted some of those. They're really incredible. And I do write down stuff, ideas, and then I did sketches of different, like, of the pelvis, and I wanted it to be like basically like that, and I sketched. I don't normally sketch paintings. This was really hard to do. I don't like doing that, but I felt like for this one I got really stuck. And then I took a picture of the painting so far and printed it and stuck it in there just as visual reminders. And like I did some Photoshop studies too and printed. I don't always do this, but I was so stuck with this painting. I just kept doing it over and over. And I really liked this stage. Yeah, and then like it ended up being something totally different. It was that chick curled up. I found the photo on some stock site, and I'm like, oh, I like that. And then like, it's like all of that playing is like covered up, and no one will ever see it. So I'm so glad I put it in my sketchbook. So yeah, if you have ideas, write them down when they come to you, and I might even use that study for something else. You know. You used what? Sorry. Just get your primaries, really, right? Yeah. Yeah, those are really, you'll definitely need white for gouache, for sure, to lighten it up a bit. Oh yeah, you're more than halfway there. That's the ones I bought too. Gouache is lovely because it comes in so many shades, right? They have all the pastel colors. They have a lot of vibrant colors, and I haven't bought any, but yeah, start with the simple ones, and then if you get bored of those, you can get the other shades, but always start with your primaries first. All right, for the sake of the recording, I'm going to cut it off here. What's that? I didn't in my original because the focus is on the bee, but if you feel like it's a little bit naked, you can for sure shade it. What you can do if you want to try is you get that general green shading color that we have, the off green. You can even do a little drop shadow from where the antenna is, like that. Oh, it's not focusing. There we go. If you want. Oh, yeah. I mean, basically, if you just copy the exact same shape and do it an inch lower, you're good. That's all I'm doing. No worries. It's okay. I didn't have it in the original, so it wasn't really in the plan. It's an option. If you want to shade, you're totally right. I didn't actually shade the petals on this flower because we just left it blank because the bee. So if you want, you can do similar shading closer to the bee's bum underneath. And then again, I'm leaving that little white border between the edge of the petal. And then I'll do it again, add a little bit of shading. Thank you for pointing that out actually, because my flower was very flat too. I'm trying to match that color, but it's being stubborn. I'm trying to get the same color that I did last class over here. It has more blue in it. It looks like it has more blue. I remember trying to describe color mixing to my mother when I was 5 or 6 years old, and she had no idea what I was talking about because there were cookies, and the center of the cookie had like chocolate chips, but the color of a chocolate chip with the dough on top, it was this kind of color because it was a dark color with the dough covering it, and I was trying to tell her that the cookies were blue. And she didn't understand. She's like, what are you talking about? The cookies aren't blue. I'm like, yeah, but it's like a bluish beige. Like, I was trying to describe this color. Right? She's thinking I'm just absolutely nuts. Yeah, I've always been obsessed with color. It was really, I was trying to describe like this. I had a hell of a time trying to describe it. She didn't understand what I was saying, but it wasn't until like 20 years later until I realized I was trying to describe like reflective shading off of a blue-black object onto green, or onto a beige object, which appears blue, right? Anyway, I'm just like, yeah. What's wrong with my daughter? She thinks my chocolate chip cookies are moldy. And at first I remember she was thinking that they were, that I was saying that the cookies had gone bad. I'm like, no, it means they're soft, because the hard cookies just turn brown. But the soft cookies had like the semi-transparent because it's slightly undercooked. Cookies. We end up always talking about food on stream. So I'm shading the petal under the wing, and it's wonderful because it's kind of bringing out that shape of the wing. Now we can actually see, but because I left that white border, it makes it look like really light and airy, you know? Oops, that's a flower petal. There we go. It's pretty intense. Yeah, I'm thinking my classes keep getting harder. I need to pull it back a little bit. And what I need to do, what this actually tells me, is that I need to start painting more on my own to inspire more pieces so that I can do, because I'm getting into this, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this and that and that, and it's no longer a class-worthy piece, but it's something I keep doing because I enjoy doing it for the love of painting. And I'm like, you know what? I should just paint more often and not force everyone else to paint all the stuff I want to paint. But oh gosh, yeah, and that's not fair because this is what I do. No, it's not at all. And I feel like it started when we did the nebula piece, the galaxy, and I'm just like having so much fun with it. And I had already painted like a dozen galaxies, so I was like off the deep end with that one. So I'm thinking we'll do the firefly one. I'll show you guys actually. I'll stop recording in a sec. Hang on. And then I'll switch sources. I can show you the firefly painting. So yeah, I'm shading. Oh, awesome. Is it a bit simpler or just different? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, are you still messing around with your jellyfish, India? Oh gosh, yeah. You know, there are some jellyfish that don't have such obvious tendrils though. It is. It's like the last flourish there, right? I don't think I shaded this petal either. Yeah. Oh, the jelly? Really? Well, I'm so glad you guys are keeping them and working on them. That's lovely. Yeah, no, I hear you. Mine is on the wall. It's being sold at an auction. I should probably let you guys know, I haven't been promoting it nearly enough. Ron, who is an avid Artoa member and an old friend of mine, is running, he works for this, Live Work, yeah, that's the one, Live Work Play. He works for them. And they're doing a charity fundraiser, and he asked if I had anything to donate. And I'm like, you know what, that jellyfish, I really like it. But I'm not going to do anything with it. Someone else might really like it. So it's for auction. I need to bring up the link again and share it, because I only shared it once, and it's so hard to share stuff on Facebook because it gets drowned out. There's so much noise, you know? All right, this video is 1,000,000 hours long. I'm going to say that it's done. You guys can keep messing around with the wings. Shade your petals underneath the bee and the wings using the same color. And I promise I'll come up with something a little less crazy next time. Thanks for joining. Oh my goodness. All right.